Please confirm the recording has been started. Well done, Mr. Coral. It's now 11:02 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the WIFA board with a roll call for members' attendance. I will call the roll. David Beckham.
Present.
Ted Cook.
Here.
Buchanan Davis.
Present.
Therese Horseman.
Present.
Drew John.
Here.
Donna Michaels.
Present.
Tim Tomure.
Here.
Jonathan Lyons. And myself, Pete Kim, I am present. Quorum is confirmed. Now calling on non-voting members, Elizabeth Alvarado Thorson, Tom Bushatsky.
Lainey Meeker for Director Bushatsky.
Thank you. Gail Griffin. Lauren Kuby. Karen Peters.
Present.
Robin Said. TJ Shope.
I am here.
Excellent. Welcome, sir. Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. Sandra Watson. The roll call is complete. For the record, please remember to identify yourself when making a motion or requesting to speak. Please ensure you are unmuted for any votes. And for those in the room, please remember to leave the microphones on the table for sound quality purposes. In addition, if any board member wishes to depart the meeting at any time, please announce your departure for our recorded meeting minutes. Agenda item number 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Has WIFA staff received any disclosures?
Morning, Joe Soteli, General Counsel. No disclosures have been submitted for today's meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If any member would like to identify and disclose a conflict for any item on today's agenda at this time, they may do so. Seeing none, I'm going to use my discretion to make a small change to the order of the agenda, and I'll ask Director McGuire to make her director's report quickly in order to facilitate some introductions.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Kim. And thanks for agreeing to chair in Jonathan's absence. So we appreciate you stepping up for that.
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes. But I did ask Chairman Kim to switch up the agenda order because I didn't want to get started until we had a proper introduction for our newest board member. So it is my pleasure today to introduce to you all Donna Michaels, the newest member of the WIFA board. Dr. Michaels brings with her a wealth of experience in public policy, in environmental stewardship, and in community collaboration. Previously, she served as a Yavapai County supervisor, and I can say from personal experience there, she was a strong advocate for policies that really revolved around responsible growth and water sustainability and fiscal accountability. I would characterize her leadership as consistently focused on solutions that balance those economic and environmental priorities. And I think she's going to bring just a fantastic perspective and insight to this board. So I am delighted to welcome her and really look forward to what she'll bring to our shared work in advancing sustainable water and financial governance. Dr. Michaels, if you would like to share a few words, I know I didn't prepare you to do that, but you'd be more than welcome to address the board at this time if you'd like.
Well, thank you for those very kind words. I was wondering who the heck you were talking about. It's been my great good pleasure to have the opportunity to serve with this really esteemed board. All of you, each in your way, irrespective of differing viewpoints, have found a way to come together for the improvement of our great state and its water security and future sustainability. And I'm just honored to be a part of that. Chelsea, thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate that and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And if I may, on behalf of the board and staff, welcome to the board. And we also are looking forward to working with you. Okay, moving on. Agenda.
Actually, I have a few more. Sorry.
Oh,
Mr. Kim.
excuse me. I thought that was the only one.
I
Please
get
continue.
to filibuster for a while. Aren't you all lucky? So first of all, federal government shutdown. As I'm sure all of you know, federal government is currently shut down due to budget issues and an inability to come to an agreement on the future fiscal year budget. And WIFA has a lot of federal grants. And so that does have an impact on what WIFA is doing. thankfully, currently WIFA is not really seeing significant impacts as a result of that shutdown. We have communicated with our borrowers that they should continue as planned with their SRF projects. Keep working, keep submitting reimbursement requests, keep making payments. It is, from our perspective, business as usual here at WIFA. If the shutdown is prolonged, that may not always be the case, and I don't know the definition of prolonged, to be quite honest. But the longer it goes, the more likely it is that we may start to see delays and other inconvenience because EPA staff is furloughed, right? And so the folks who need to then process the reimbursement on their end may not be in the office. They have suspended capitalization grant releases, and so that'll impact some of our schedule as well. So we do just, again, we're not discouraging applicants from engaging with WIFA. We want them to continue to do that. We do have the ability to ensure a soft landing and ensure uninterrupted service, but just did want to make the board aware that we're very aware and we're working on that, and we're making sure that we're in constant communication with our borrowers about what the impact of the shutdown might be, if any. So if you as board members or any borrowers who are in the audience are listening and you have any questions, please reach out to your project managers, reach out to Lindsay, reach out to myself. We'll make sure that you have any information you need and we can answer, to the extent that we can, any questions that you might have. Next thing I wanted to cover is a quick water conservation grant fund update. At the last meeting, we did hear from a representative of Phoenix Christian Preparatory Academy regarding a grant application submitted by that entity. And in response to that public comment, the board directed staff to communicate with the applicant and report back on potential opportunities to kind of reconsider that application. Grant staff were very quick in communicating both with the applicant and also myself, and reminded me that that application was actually never acted on by the committee or the board. So there's not really anything to reconsider. The reason for that is that it was a timing issue. So as a private educational institution, the academy wasn't eligible under the grant statutes. They did end up securing a potential eligible partner, but that didn't happen until after the submission deadline had passed. And so that was kind of the issue with that. So in terms of reconsidering a decision, there isn't one to reconsider. But I do still want to reiterate just how much we appreciate the perseverance of that applicant and the interest they have in this program. I think it absolutely highlights the fact that, I have said this a lot, there's such a demand for conservation projects and for being good stewards of water, and sometimes the only thing in the way is money. And so I really, really appreciate their tenacity. I think it underscores the need for us to go out and find some more resources for that program, because I really do want to give them the opportunity to participate and keep that momentum alive. Last but not least, I'm going to turn over to Lindsay for a few minutes to talk about the EPA annual report. This is a document that WIFA is required to submit to the EPA at the end of every federal fiscal year, outlining our progress, our move toward our goals on the SRF programs. You have a complete copy of that report in your board materials, so she's just going to provide some highlights. Lindsay?
Thank you, Director McGuire. So yes, as Chelsea said, it is an annual report that we owe to the EPA every year to basically tell them how we did over that past fiscal year as it relates to meeting all of the requirements for the drinking water and clean water SRF programs and meeting all the terms of those capitalization grants that we receive. So it gives a lot of details, lots of tables and information that is hopefully helpful to understand where this last year really took us. We also include information on all of the supplemental grants that we've been receiving through that bipartisan infrastructure law, and really highlighting the large amount of funds that we have available and the loan forgiveness that we have available through that. One of the big key kind of takeaways is that it was a bit of a slower year on the clean water side specifically. So if you look at our amount of loans that we executed in FY25, it was lower than we typically see. It was following a year when we had loan demand that was 150 million, a very, very high demand year on the clean water side. So it was a bit of a slower year. We also are already seeing improvements in the FY26 numbers. So we're very optimistic to see those numbers kind of increase and look at the binding commitments getting a bit higher from what they were. Otherwise, we had other key takeaways, a very healthy amount of loan forgiveness awarded to a large number of projects. and really working towards meeting all of our different requirements, maintaining that financial strength, maintaining our AAA bond rating. We mentioned the refinancing and the 4.6 million in interest that we saved, as well as releasing that 34 million in reserves that happened in that last fiscal year. And then just really highlighting all of the outreach that we've been doing. And I think it's a good example of the hard work that the staff has been going through. But happy to answer any questions about the report or if there's any comments. Thank you.
And I will definitely reiterate too what Lindsay said on the clean water side. I think it's a bit of a pendulum shift, right? We had such a huge year last year that although it was a much smaller year this year, I'm not necessarily too worried about that. I think it's just an overcorrection from what we saw in previous years. But with that, Mr. Chair, I am finally done.
Well done. We will move on to the next item.
We have lost, or at least I have lost your voice. There we go.
How about that?
That's even better. I love that. Thank you.
There,
Pete.
there you go. We're going to be moving on to the next agenda item, which is an informational presentation on cybersecurity in Arizona's water system. And this is the latest in a series of conversations that we've had on this topic. For those of you who are not familiar with the previous discussions, they are all available online. And there are some interesting and sometimes rather frightening revelations in some of there. For example, we don't know what percentage of Arizona's water system is already compromised. Could be 0, it could be 100%. We simply don't know. And that's some of the other efforts that are being done inside of that area are staffed largely by volunteers. Those are two of the insights that I seem to recall. Anyway, today we'll have another presentation which has been created at the when we asked staff to ask what we could do in order to potentially help this situation. Mr. Coral.
Yes, so once again, I'd like the record to reflect that I am not a CISO. I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I know I play one on TV, but I brought you another speaker. To clarify, before I introduce our speaker, I do want to mention that they were unable to meet with us the last meeting with Ryan. And this is not an Arizona focus specific. This is more of a broader what they're seeing across their threat landscape. But I have with us today Alec Davison. He is the lead risk analyst at the Water Information Sharing and Analysis Center, where he focuses on physical security, operational resilience, and geopolitical risk. I'll let you take it away, Alec. I think we gave you slide control, but if something gets weird, let us know and we'll advance for you.
Are you there, sir?
Thanks. That's already.
Oh, no.
Sorry to wait through this.
Okay. As we seem to be having technical difficulties at the moment, which is ironic, why don't we move to the next agenda item, which will be agenda item number 5, reserving the right to come back to this agenda item if and when we figure out the technical issues. The next item on the agenda is the Q1 budget updates, and Denise Olson will lead the discussion. Denise?
Thank you. So this is a status update of where we're at as far as executing our administrative budget. And if we can go to the slide 27. Thank you. The target is 25%. Again, this assumes a linear approach to spending our budget, which is basically 3 months divided by 12. So just in case you didn't follow that. The total budget approved by the board was 11.1 million. We've spent 1.8 million with 9.2 million remaining. And if we can go to the next slide, I'll break it down for you a little bit further. This slide shows you each category and compares the actuals to the budget. You can see that we're off when it comes to professional and outside services. This is really a timing issue between work being completed and invoicing. Also, this is really driven by our activities on the long-term water augmentation fund. So I do expect a better evaluation of where we're at with that mid-year. Then we also have equipment and other operating, which is also lower than targets. And that is because that budget is related to our system replacement, which we anticipate happening at the second part of the fiscal year. So those are the highlights. One thing I will note, I did compare where we were last year, and we were at 22.9% last year as far as what we executed. So we're a little bit lower. So I think we're in pretty good shape with the budget. Is there any questions?
I'll ask just the obvious questions. Budgets are always interesting things. Are we on budget or off budget? We're under budget, but is that a timing issue or do you need less money?
We're on budget.
Just making that clear for everybody.
But I will say, one note, if you remember, we did approve some additional monies for the conservation program. We have not incorporated that into this budget yet, so I'll be bringing that back to the board probably December, January, along with some other budget changes related to the base contracts for the long-term water augmentation fund. So.
Good. These are actuals to date. What, according to your projections, which smooth out the kind of timing issues and things like that, are we still on track for having using the budget as it was planned?
With the exception of the conservation monies, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next item? All right. The next item, actually, did we get the?
He's rejoining right now. I'd probably proceed to the next item if that's what
Okay,
fits the schedule best.
you don't want me to vamp for like 30 seconds?
You can, you're the chair. I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Fair enough. I already burned up 15 seconds, but okay, anyway, consent agenda. Agenda items number 6 through 10 are noticed as consent agenda items and will be considered as group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless otherwise requested by a board member. A reminder to those attending virtually, please ensure you are unmuted for our votes. I will now entertain requests to pull items from the consent agenda, if any. Mr. Beckham.
Yeah, I would like to pull the drinking water revolving fund of number 8. It's resolution 2026-012.
Okay. Any others? All right. There you go. So I think in the absence of that, should we do the ones that were not pulled first?
Correct. So you can do the ones that weren't pulled as a group motion, and then we can consider number 8. So we can entertain a motion for items 6 through 10 with the exception of number 8.
Okay, so do I have any motions to approve the consent agenda absent item number 8?
So moved. Drew John?
True, John. First motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other board member discussion? Seeing none, we will now call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstained? Okay, the motion passes.
So it does look like we have Alec with us. If we wanted to go ahead and do that presentation before moving to discussion on number 8, I'll leave that to your prerogative.
Knowing what I know about option number 8, they're both going to be meaty discussions, but why don't we go ahead and clear the previous agenda item first, and then we can move on to discussion of number 8, unless Mr. Beckham, you would like to change that order.
No, I think that's cool. Let him finish up his arm now.
Great, okay. With that auspicious beginning, why don't we jump into the cybersecurity briefing? Garrett, take it away. Or,
Maybe.
Alec, are you with us?
I'm
Feel like
here.
you-
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir, we can. Please continue.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. My name is Alec Davison. I'm the lead analyst at Water ISAC, or the Water Information Sharing and Analysis Center. We are going to be, next slide, please. I don't know if I'm controlling the slides or,
No, we can control those for you, Alec.
okay, thank you. So next slide, please. Just quickly, before we get started, just a general reminder that we all shared this traffic light protocol, which is just defines how you can share the information we're about to discuss. This is TLP green, meaning just not sharing this information publicly. It's not super sensitive, but we don't want it just falling into anyone in the public's hands. Next slide, please. Just a quick agenda. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Water ISAC, very brief, focus mostly on the cybersecurity threat landscape facing the sector. Touch briefly on the physical threat landscape because unfortunately that is also evolving and very complex as well. And then we'll end with Q&A if you guys have any. Just to give you some examples on the right of what we are tracking here at Water ISAC. Again, just not the complete picture, but some of the incidences that are impacting the sector, from violent extremists calling for attacks physically on water infrastructure, to insider threat former employees, to also nation state cyber attacks. The list goes on, unfortunately, as we're going to get into. Next slide. So just briefly, what is Water ISAC? So we were established right after 9/11 at the urging of the federal government and other sector associations, utilities. We currently have around 700, that graphic's a little dated, around 700 water and wastewater utility operators. Well, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to all the 50,000 public water systems in the country. We at least cover about 2/3 of the US population based on the members we serve through our threat awareness information and other products. So at least we know we're reaching most of the US population. And one way we are looking to expand that is in 2024, last year, we started a partnership with the National Rural Water Association, who serves all the smallest rural and other small utilities around the country. And we're working on getting tailored threat information to those utilities who, as you all know, are very under-resourced and just working on keeping the water flowing. Needless to say, not even thinking about China or Russia or other cyber activity. So with that, we did about a special, if you guys have this in your area or know of utilities, if you serve under 3,300 or less, you're eligible for free membership to all of Water ISAC's products and services. So we're really looking to encourage more small utilities to join our network, just so they're aware of the threats. Because as we're going to get into, you can't defend against what you don't know. And unfortunately, there's a lot to know in our threat environment that just constantly elevated over the past few years. Next slide, please. And I've kind of explained it, but just briefly, the mission of us here at Water ISAC, we're an all hazards threat analyst shop. So that means we're looking at cybersecurity, physical security, and natural disasters and operational resilience as well. Our goal is to be left of boom, as that nice little graphic shows you there on the screen, trying to make sure that you all, as in the water sector, have the best threat information so you can prepare, defend, and deter against any threats. Next slide, please. Just briefly, if you're curious how we do what we do, this graphic just kind of helps illustrate it. Again, we're a two-way information sharing shop where we get our analysis or information in from several partners like federal government, state government, individuals like you all at the utility level, other ISACs like myself. We then make that more relevant for water and wastewater utilities, and then send that information back out there for them to help defend against a cyber attack, like individuals like what we're having actually ongoing today. And then vice versa, we get great information from utilities on the ground. They'll send that information to us, report an incident, report some cyber attack. We'll anonymize that, and then with their permission, send it out to the larger community and also some of our federal partners, so we can potentially stop a larger attack before it occurs. Next slide, please. And then just briefly, how we do it all is through our products and also some of our services. But we have weekly security updates. We have quarterly incident reports, annual threat analysis reports, security case studies, informational fact sheets, and cybersecurity guidance documents, as well as advisories that we've unfortunately had to send more recently because these are like ad hoc reports. If there's a cyber attack that's occurring currently, we're able to send out some information and help a utility hopefully mitigate against potential attack. We also do webinars like I'm doing today, trainings, in-person exercises, and other events. All right, well, that's Water ISAC. Let's get into the actual meat and bones of meat potatoes, excuse me, of why you all invited me here. So next slide, please. So the cybersecurity threat landscape facing the water and wastewater sector today is increasingly complex and volatile, with a wide range of threat actors who seek to target the sector, not just for financial gains, but unfortunately now increasingly to again disturb our way of life here in Western society, sow chaos, and they know that by targeting water, they can do that most efficiently. And unfortunately, sometimes we've made it pretty easy for them. So what is occurring? These are kind of getting some of these big pictures of what we're seeing in the cyber threat landscape. Again, as I mentioned already, China, Russia, Iran, we're having an increase in nation state actors that are specifically interested in looking for the smallest water utilities. As I'll say an example later, just some small guys like that were hit last year in January in Texas that served less than 5,000 people just because they were water and just because they were internet exposed, they were targeted by Russians. Again, we have threat actors like China that are leveraging sophisticated tools in our networks and systems to then maintain persistence. Vulnerabilities, unfortunately, it's harder to patch, especially when you're running an operational that's 24/7. So we understand that, but threat actors are using these known exploited vulnerabilities to just get into your system without even having to hack you. Again, they're just use it, or they're stealing your credentials. Also, third-party risk. So that's contractors, vendors. We have a lot of small utilities that report to us who outsource some of their cybersecurity work to these ISPs and other internet providers. And unfortunately, when they have that remote access, they're then an attacker is able to then kind of compromise that third party and then get into the OT system. That's how we've seen a lot of these OT ICS attacks in the past. Of course, phishing still remains almost the top, if not the top, initial access vector. So if you guys, I'm sure, see this every day, you get scams, emails, or even scam on your phones. You accidentally click that link, and then you potentially have opened the door, if you're a utility employee, to a cyber attack. And of course, ransomware continues unabated. But again, bottom line is it's not a matter of if, but when a utility will be attacked, or even just unfortunately for us as everyday Americans, that we will probably experience some type of cyber incident in our lives just because it's so pervasive. And now with AI, allowing a lot of threat actors to automate these types of attacks. Next slide, please. So again, who are the adversaries? Not as important as a network defender, but just for your all information, my boss, Jen, who's in charge of our cybersecurity program, likes to say it's all about the behaviors and the tactics, because that's what the utility needs to know so they can defend against it. But as a security nerd, I'm always interested in who's attacking us. So anyway, we have nation state threat actors. So that's Volt Typhoon is most famously from China. You also have other Russian-backed state actors who've attacked water and water infrastructure in the past few years, Iranian actors as well. And then kind of more murkier, as we've seen since the start of about the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, an increase in hacktivists who are geopolitically motivated. So say they support Russia or they support Iran, and they are targeting critical infrastructure organizations, specifically the OT ICS systems, if they can, at a more frequent basis over the past 3 years than they have since we've ever seen. And again, just for your awareness, most of them are independent of these governments, but they are tacitly supported by them. And of course, cybercrime continues unabated. The ransomware gangs, you have BEC attacks, and then other just types of initial access criminals who are just looking to gain access to your systems so that they can make some type of profit to other threat actors. These individuals, unfortunately, could say gain access to your system and then not even use it like a cyber criminal and then sell that access to a nation state or some type of violent extremist group who's looking to cause more trouble than just gain access to your system for monetary gain. Next slide, please. So known incidents. I heard this question put to you before I accidentally dropped off. It could have been a cyber incident. Who knows? No, I'm just kidding. That was just my computer, unfortunately, being slow and crashing. But so there are some of the incidents we are tracked at Water ISAC. So again, we get incidents reported to us by water utilities, the federal government, fusion centers. We also do quarterly incident surveys. And that is just a drop in the bucket of what we are seeing. As again, my colleagues like to emphasize that what we report on, what the government data has, no one has a complete picture of the amount of cyber attacks that are happening on a near daily basis, because it's so many, and organizations are not reporting when it does happen to them because of for many reasons, for brand reputation or others. But That's all to say is we tracked 100 cyber incidences last year that specifically led to operational impacts at water, wastewater utilities. And those range the gambit from ransomware attacks, business email compromises, so that's like a financial scam, hacktivist activity targeting, again, operational technology with some actual confirmed compromises. And again, China, which we'll get into later, Volt Typhoon, knowing that we can confirm it's an open source, did compromise some water and wastewater utilities and pre-position themselves, which we'll get into in a bit. So again, I just want to emphasize, because this was put earlier, I would say with almost certainty, there are cyber actors that are on Arizona water utility networks as we speak, either doing reconnaissance to then try to steal something so they can make a profit, or more nefariously, they are some type of nation state backed actor who is pre-positioning themselves to be able to do some type of more malicious or disruptive or even destructive activity at a later date in the event of some type of geopolitical conflict. So that's a good segue into my next topic. Next slide, please. People's Republic of China threat actors. Volt Typhoon, even though you might have heard there's like Flax Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, there's a whole lot of typhoons out there. Very original naming, I guess. But what's most concerning for us in the water sector is these cluster of threat actors known as Volt Typhoon. So again, these are specifically Chinese-backed state cyber attackers who are infiltrating critical infrastructure organizations across the lifeline sectors. So that's, say, transportation, energy, communications, and of course, us in the water and wastewater sector. And the purpose is pre-positioning of their actors. So they're not like just going in there and then destroying something and going out. They're leaving themselves in. They're maintaining persistence, as we call it in the cyber world. And that is doing that by a technique called living off the land, which is where they use the native functionality of these different applications already in a network. So to then manipulate that application that's already in there and then allow them to maintain access to the network. And why that's bad is because a lot of these traditional antivirus and other type of traditional cybersecurity controls we have can't detect something that's using an application or, say, some type of system that's already on the network. So it's very hard to detect unless you're someone who knows a lot more about cybersecurity than me. So what's, again, nefarious is we've had confirmed reports of them getting into operational technology networks of water and wastewater utilities, and they're just hanging out there, again, pre-positioning, because there is an unfortunate date that our government has told critical infrastructure organizations as well as the military is preparing for, but that is 2027, when the president of China has given his military the go or the requirement to be ready to invade Taiwan. And in that scenario, based on open source information, again, we assess that even though we're not sure if the U.S. would get involved or how they would respond, just in case, again, because it is some ambiguous policy we have, China would likely launch some type of disruptive or massive destructive attack on our critical infrastructure organizations to slow us down, to stop us from mobilizing to defend Taiwan, and also just to sow chaos here in the homeland so that we're not focusing on stuff overseas, but we're more panicked and, again, trying to fix our house at home. So that, again, is a continuing threat, even though they've been warning about it for 2 years. Again, it's a game of cat and mouse. They get into one system, and then you got to get them out, and it just goes on and on. As I'll get into in the end, the best way is to keep them outside the network if you can. So it's a lot harder to get them out of the network than keeping them out of the network, if that makes sense. I kind of said it both, but next slide. This slide, it got transferred over a little weirdly, but again, I'm moving into now hacktivist kind of attacks, which again are semi-nation state adjacent. But this slide is a great graphic that was produced by ODNI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, last year. And it specifically shows, again, from November of 23 to April of 24, confirmed hacktivist attacks that compromised operational technology systems. And the arrows you see here are all confirmed water utilities that had known compromise of operational technology systems. So again, we see a lot of claims of these hacktivists where they claim on social media, boasting that they've got into a system, and more often than not, they're usually wrong. Again, it's just for clout and publicity and just as a scare tactic. But unfortunately, these, again, are confirmed compromises of an operational technology system. Next slide, please. Okay, that transferred over. Nice. All right. So Russia-aligned hacktivists. These individuals, again, tacitly supported by the Russian government, but since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, have increasingly targeted U.S. critical infrastructure systems, notably water and wastewater utilities. In January of 2024, they were able to compromise at least three small Texas water utilities. They not even that, but they caused physical disruptions through their cyber attack. For instance, they were able to manipulate the SCADA, the HMI system on one of the SCADA devices, and there's a picture of that shown there in the middle of the screen. And they were able to adjust some of the tanks in an outdoor utility that caused an overflow of that tank. So again, you're seeing real physical impacts. Luckily, they were able to shut off their access before there was any other public health impacts. But again, that incident demonstrated the real world physical consequences of a cyber attack from like a nation state aligned threat actor. And what these guys usually do again is they just take screenshots of systems, even if they don't have operational controls, and then they post it on social media, usually Telegram. And we track that and cover those even when they're claimed attacks, just to make a tally, which you guys can all follow if you are Water ISAC members. And again, I'm going to get into in the next slide, but really how they're getting in is just low hanging fruit. This is individuals or utilities that have devices that are connected to the internet.
Mr. Davidson? Hi, this is Kim. I'm just, in the interest of time, because this is fascinating, and it really is, and a little bit frightening too. But just in the interest of time, we need to move forward from the here's how they could get in or here's who they might be to some other questions that I really want to make sure that we have time to get to.
Okay.
So, so pardon the interruption, but just in like, again, you know more about this than we do. And you know, the top level questions, I think, in our minds, and I want to open it up to everybody to have to ask their questions as well. But I'll just start with one. It's impossible to know what percentage of the water is already compromised, if you will, right? You would need omniscience and like perfect information, which we've spent this morning talking doesn't exist. But in your opinion, and we won't hold you to this or anything like that, but if you were just to have to guess or estimate a range, a low and a high, right now our range is somewhere between 0 to 100%, which isn't really going on a limb, is it? So what would you guess is the percentage of water systems or the percentage of Arizona water that might be compromised? Like, it would surprise you if it was lower than that. It would surprise you if it was higher.
I'd say between 33 to 50%, so a third to a half.
Of the water in Arizona is already compromised. This is just your best guess at the
That's
moment.
my best guess in some way, either by some cyber criminal, some nation state, could just be someone. Compromised could mean a lot of things. It could be that they have some of their passwords and usernames that are floating on the internet, just waiting for some type of cyber criminal to take advantage of. I consider that a compromise as well. So at least half. Again, it's not a matter of if, but when some type of system is going to be hit, unfortunately.
What would you do to improve that situation? And how much would it cost?
So number one, again, joining an information sharing community, kind of like you guys all are now. You can't defend against what you don't know. So plugging into some type of network, whether that's us, whether that's a fusion center. Again, here's some number one, 12 recommendations that we have in our fundamentals of water and wastewater utilities. But it's just getting that awareness for some of these smaller utilities on just basic cyber controls. So that's using complex passwords. That's updating your systems and patching when you can, or using a workaround when you can't patch. That's getting things disconnected from the internet. And that is using multi-factor authentication at always now, whenever you can. And there's other controls as well, but those are kind of the four. Number one, if we call it cyber hygiene. And again, it sounds kind of funny, but it's just because something you should be like hygiene, like washing your hands, something you should be doing every day without thinking about it. Because again, you implement those four controls and you make it a lot harder for the bad guys to get in. Even though there's two things about this. The cyber actors are actually specifically targeting water and wastewater utilities now because they know how valuable we are, but they're also targeting the easiest targets that they see on the internet. And unfortunately, that happens to be small water and wastewater utilities because there's again, sometimes, as you all know better than me, there's two people who are running a shop and they're not thinking about cybersecurity. They're plugging their computer and they're plugging in some OT system into the internet because they have some service provider who needs to remote in. But that connection can be easily, again, taken over.
So actually, I'll ask the question a slightly different way, and then I'm just gonna literally open it up. If I am a water utility that's already compromised, I'm in the sort of 1/3 to 1/2, how much does it cost for me to clean that out?
It is much more expensive to respond to an event than to deter one, just like in warfare in real life.
Agreed. How much does it cost?
To defend, I'd
No,
say
no. The first question was to clean out.
to clean out, I don't have a good number. I'd say, depending on the size of the organization, millions, tens of millions. Could be hundreds of thousands at the minimum if you're a small system.
So a significant amount. Okay.
Good amount.
And then let's say that you're one part of the lucky portion that has not been compromised already, and you just want to raise your defenses and improve the security. How much does that cost?
Some hundreds to thousands of dollars, because there's some free services available through the federal government, through other agencies where you can start, again, putting up high walls and defenses to create a strong perimeter so that bad guys can't get in.
So the delta between protection versus extermination, excavation is a lot of zeros. Okay.
Yes.
Other questions?
Good question. Thank you.
Please go ahead. Chair
I
recognizes.
think somebody else just came up on the board. New member.
Donna Michaels.
Yeah.
Donna Michaels.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to ask this question. I know it certainly weighed heavily, and I'm sure my colleague in Coconino County can attest to it as well, Patrice, in dealing with this very issue for county government. We work with Homeland Security in Yavapai County. And to what extent are we making those connections and utilizing capacity without increasing risk because of the relationship, of course, with them?
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, I assume you're asking how are we working with kind of county level officials?
And Homeland Defense, yeah, Homeland Security.
So, well, we work closely with federal Homeland Security, but in terms of the local county emergency managers at Homeland, that's kind of case by case. I mean, it's we always are trying to raise awareness that, especially for government officials, they have free access to our sites and information as like fusion centers have access. So again, it's a spotty because it's up to these counties who are able to asking to join our systems. We're a small shop of about 10 people, so we can't just be focused on outreach all day, unfortunately. You've got to do the analysis and the research. But again, so if a county is wanting to join our network, a county emergency, we'd love to have them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Davidson, thank you very much for your time today. And without further ado, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which I believe was discussion on the item that was pulled from the consent agenda. Item number 8, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we, who is the right person to lead the discussion? on
That'll be
number 8?
Mr. Scott Connolly.
Mr. Scott Connolly, Chair recognizes you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Chairman Kim. So we're gonna go over viewpoint 2 Townhomes Association request. Slightly over 3.15 million to replace all water lines and support the installation of isolation valves and remote submeters in their distribution system in order to improve their water quality, reduce the water loss from their emergency line breaks, and improve water pressure. Tucson Water supplies all the water to the association under a master meter agreement, but Viewpoint owns and maintains the internal distribution lines and system. Consideration of funding of the Townhomes Association, or more broadly an HOA, is a first time consideration for WIFA. And specific to this situation, the ADEQ did assign a public water system number that was then inactivated, but being a public water system is an eligible funding entity of WIFA. Viewpoint 2 Townhome Association recently updated their articles of incorporation to raise their debt ceiling to allow for this loan request. That action required an approval of 3/4 of their association membership, and they got over 90% approval back. In addition, statutorily, the Townhomes Association or an HOA can raise fees 20% a year without any membership vote. And that plan of increase was communicated to the members when they were doing the debt ceiling request, and the townhome does plan to implement the 20% increases in both fiscal year 2026 and actually it's calendar year 2026 and 2027 to support the funding of this loan request. Viewpoint pledges assessment revenue to repay this loan. Current projections indicate that they will be below WIFA's required 1.2 time debt service coverage until 2029, and that's even factoring in the 20% increases I mentioned above. However, the town does have an existing reserve fund that can be used to offset some of those shortfalls and support loan payments. But even given that, we are, because of the underperformance in those early years, we are going to require that they form additional security, whether that be a letter of credit or other some form of payment guarantee that just gives us, that we accept, that we think will protect WIFA's interest in getting repaid. And then the applicant does meet the WIFA criteria for disadvantaged community, having a median household income for the area that's being served under 9% of the state median household income. And because of that, WIFA recommends $792,331 in forgivable principal, which is about 25%. And also recommends up $20,000 in technical assistance funding to contract with the Council of Governments to provide compliance assistance with Davis-Bacon Acts and requirements. The FPC did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this project. We do have 2 representatives from the association here in our audience, Ryan Harding and Scott Hercule, who can answer any questions. And the loan officer was Channing Lester, project manager Samantha Lemke. And that I'll open up to any questions to either staff or the borrower.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff?
Sure.
Mr. Beckham.
So this whole, it's a private HOA, correct?
Yes,
And that private HOA owns all these lines, is that correct?
that is my understanding, yes.
And it's behind a gate in a community.
I
So the
assume-
roads are private.
Okay, sure.
Tell me about this ADEQ number that they somehow got, and then I don't even know what the word inactivated means. Means it was actively deactivated or just lapsed, or what was it for? Why is it inactivated?
Well, I think I might want to either put that to Lindsay or Karen, whoever, wants to talk about it.
I can start, but please, Director Peters, if there's more to add, please add that. So our understanding is that this is by definition a public water system through the statutory definition of what constitutes a public water system.
Can I ask you to stop you there?
Yeah.
Are all HOA water systems public water systems
No.
then?
No, there are some HOAs that are within the public water system of the city that they are residing in. And then there's others like this one where they have a master meter where they're purchasing water from the city, but they own all of the distribution lines. So it is unique in a different type of HOA than, but they exist. I mean, this is not the only one.
So I used to live in a townhome community, and the water lines were owned by the HOA.
Mhm.
They weren't public, they weren't owned by the city, nor were they regulated. I guess they didn't have any ADQ number. And when they went bad, the HOA, we had to pony up to fix them. So how is this different from that? I just don't understand.
So my understanding is that when ADQ and I think the Attorney General's office looked at this, they determined that by definition, this does meet the requirements to be labeled as a public water system, which then makes them eligible to apply for funding like through the SRF program.
Can
They're
all HOAs do that?
As long
What's
as they,
different- what's
they got
unique about
recognized
this
by ADQ to get that public water system ID number.
I
So they
think
have to have the
answer to-
minimum.
That's begging the question.
I
I'm trying
think
to
the answer
understand
to
why
your
they're.
question is that there
is-
is no differentiation between your townhome that you just described and Viewpoint. The differentiation is that your townhome association did not have an incentive to go get a public water systems number. I think they could have because they did meet that statutory
And they
definition.
could right now.
And they could right now.
So does ADEQ issue a public water system number to any HOA that comes in and say, we need to fix our lines? Can you do, and what are those? What I'm trying to do is understand the slippery slope to where we're funding private systems. And we get into that and we go, uh-oh. And how about everybody else in the state who's a private HOA with private facilities of some type, who now come to us and say, hey, we deserve to get funding too. It's bothersome, and I don't know where we start and stop this.
And I can read the definition of public water system if that's helpful. So in statute, a public water system is a system that provides water for human consumption through pipes or other constructing conveyances, and then has at least 15 service connections or regularly serves at least 25 persons daily for 60 days a year. So if you meet that definition, you could get that public water system ID number. Because they're distribution only system, they are not required to be regulated by ADQ in the same way that the systems that have wells and storage tanks are. And that's, for my understanding, is the reason why it's listed as inactive, because it's not required to be regulated by ADQ in the same way that the other public water systems are. And so for the system for ADQ
So
was
what
to-
that definition tells me that any HOA in the state of Arizona that owns water lines can meet this definition, as long as they serve more than whatever it was, some de minimis number
Yeah.
of people,
15 connections, yeah.
15 connections.
15 connections is a threshold to be
So,
regulated by.
Scott, have we funded HOAs before that own their own water lines?
No, this is the first time even looking at an HOA.
Well, that's a big policy decision by my board members, because if we fund this, that means, especially with forgivable principle, that we're opening up to everybody. And I don't know how you ever say no ever again to an HOA. That's a pretty meaty decision to have.
Setting the precedent. Thank you for those.
Alright.
Do you have
Yeah.
any additional questions or comments?
Um,
There's gonna be a lot more questions,
yeah,
but I'm
that's
just
enough for now.
okay.
It's a big decision. This isn't just a one-off deal.
I agree. I think that it kind of feels like we have discovered a loophole or, something here, and that if we potentially would say yes to this, then that could create precedent for a whole bunch of other things. And once again, to beg the obvious, I think that lots of organizations would rather have state funding to pay for something as opposed to out of their own pocket. Mr. Cook, Chair recognizes Mr. Cook.
Thank you. So first, I'd just like to provide a brief comment on one of the points that Mr. Beckham brought up about the ADEQ designation. And I'm not looking for an answer, just a statement. I think that the references to, in the statute, to a public water system, or whatever the designation is, presumes an active or activated status, not a deactivated or ineligible, whatever you might call it. It really seems like a contrivance of some sort. But my real comment here is my main concern about this particular thing, particularly being the first time, and with all of the things that Mr. Beckham added about, well, now there's thousands of potential HOAs like this potentially, is the ability to repay. That's my concern. And if you had a DWID or a city or something like that, they would have a governing body that would be able to raise rates that are sufficient to repay this. And if they were somehow unable to have an individual citizen, which wouldn't happen in a DWID or a municipality to just say, I'm not paying my water bill, well, then you turn the water off. So that's a question I have is, what enforcement mechanism does this homeowners association have for enforcing payment of the dues, which, as I understand it, is the main security for the repayment here. I'm also troubled by the fact that there's a 20%, there's a provision. I'm assuming that this is in the charter of the homeowners association or something, some similar document, that the board can pass up to 20% increase in a year without a vote of the population. What if that's not enough? Do we have a loan covenant that agree, or would we have a loan covenant whereby the borrower makes a covenant to raise the rates that are sufficient to meet the debt service? It doesn't sound like it. And what happens if 20% is not enough and you go to the homeowners and they say no and they vote it down? Well, then what? My whole point here in brief is that there are not the same type of mechanisms to ensure collection and payment and raising rates as there would be for a municipal water provider or a DWID or some other kind of legal construct that an HOA is not. And until we get some of those specific questions resolved and the general question resolved, aside from I'll avoid a pejorative adjective here, the ADEQ designation, aside from that makes an HOA similar with respect to creditworthiness, ability to pay, and all of those types of things, I'm not prepared to support this.
Chair, thank you for your comments. Chair recognizes Dr. Donna Michaels.
Thank you again. Two things come to mind, and one is how do we secure it through an HOA, and is that through having a bond be required? And secondly, and I tend to lean, being so new to this, toward this option, which is to table this until further study and policy consideration be given to this, so that all of these really impactful consequences can be vetted thoroughly, and we know what we're signing up for. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Do we have any? Okay, do we have a representative from? Yes, could you please come forward?
And as you're coming up, there's a handheld microphone on the podium. So just make sure that the sign, you're reading the sign of what light needs to be on and all that good stuff. That way everybody can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Ryan Harding. I am the president and treasurer of Viewpoint 2 Townhomes Association in Tucson, Arizona.
Welcome. Please address the committee with any comments that you may have at this time.
Yes, thank you. And firstly, we very much appreciate the help. I do have the support of my entire community, 136 people that have found ourselves in a situation of being, our home values have greatly devalued because we don't know if we will continue to have water service. The HOA does own the lines, that is correct. And as a board member for that HOA, our job is to ensure the property values for all of the members of the community. We're a nonprofit organization. Now, as part of that, we do have all the authority to put liens on private property. So anyone that doesn't pay the dues, we do put them through collections, and we do get our funding that way. I believe that we can continue, well, I know, because I'm the president and the treasurer, I know we can continue to increase the 20%. I know that I have the support of the community as well. We will be voting if approved. The community will be voting to go forward with the loan or not. They would like to look at the loan documents, which is right and fair. We stay, and I realize that the collateral piece of it has been an issue. We're looking at an SBLC, a standby letter of credit. But as board members, it is our responsibility to maintain the value of the homes. And because of the issue, we've had, people are having problems even selling. If we can't fix the issue, then lenders will also not be willing to provide for us. We aren't experts in water systems, although I've become much more of an expert recently. The system was not designed. It's 47 years old, and it was not designed to last this long. We can pay it back. We fully intend to pay it back with interest. So it would be a very good investment, I think, HOAs in general, because we do have the funding and we do have the ability to put liens on all the personal property to pay back. In terms of other HOAs, I guess I didn't understand that exactly, because I believe that WIFA's mission is to ensure water quality for all Arizona and generations to come. And I do realize that this is very much a policy decision. But I trust that the board can make the right decisions in terms of, I've been working with Scott and with Channing for quite a few months now to get all of our documents together and to make sure that we can actually afford this loan. We're kind of running out of time. That's why we really needed to get a loan to be able to fix the system before there's catastrophic failure. Last year, we had a leak that took 7 days to repair. So we had to go get water for people at Costco and use pool water to flush toilets. And so I think that you would have, you'd be good at discerning whether an HOA is qualified to repay the loan or not. Even if a lot of HOAs came to you asking for funding, you'd still be able to see whether they could pay it or not. We have been putting money into reserves for quite a few years now. We didn't know we had this much of a problem until we put in submetering in 2015, and now we've had more and more leaks, upwards of about 100,000 a year just in repairs and damages to homes from flooding from the leaks.
And so maybe 30 more seconds, please.
So are there any other questions?
Yes, please. Chair recognizes Mr. Cook.
Thank you for coming to the meeting in person. It's very helpful for us to be able to ask questions, and I understand your qualification as far as you're not an expert. So I'm not trying to demand an expert answer to anything, but I do have a couple of questions. So is the HOA capable of turning off the water to an individual residence?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We hope to have better valves. Some of the valves we can't find, but
What I'm getting at with that
Sorry,
question.
did you say some of the valves you cannot find?
yes. Can't find them.
Okay, so at least for some of them. And what I'm getting at with that question is the consequences for non-payment of HOA dues or something like that. You mentioned getting a lien on the property.
Yes.
What is the recourse of the HOA? So let's say, I'm just making a number up. Let's just say that the dues is $100 a month of HOA dues. And for whatever reason, a particular resident, homeowner decides, I'm not paying my dues because I don't like this increase, or whatever the reason is, you can put a lien on the property. What's the recourse of the HOA to actually get judgment for payment from that besides foreclosing?
Yes, we do foreclose. So we give them every opportunity. We have attorney that we work with who does the
Right.
collections. They go through a whole process up to up to and including a sheriff's sale.
Right.
And then we're able to get someone else in that will pay.
Yeah, ideally.
I
Get
do.
someone else. So foreclose on the property. Now, at least temporarily, the HOA owns the home that has a mortgage that as a senior lender needs to be satisfied. Maybe a new buyer will come in, but in the meantime, there's no real liquidity in my mind to a process like that.
No, we don't own they will foreclose on it and do a sheriff's sale. So it just goes to auction immediately if
Okay.
the homeowner doesn't sell the property on their own.
And if the financing is upside down or something like that, the HOA may or may not get any dollars out of.
Correct.
Okay.
But
Another related question to that is, you had mentioned that your community is 100% or some high percentage behind you with this. Granted, you would like to look at the loan documentation and so forth before approving the loan on your HOA behalf, et cetera, et cetera. All of that I think is normal due diligence. Would the HOA, and I realize you can't speak for the rest of your board necessarily or your membership, be willing to consider a charter change that would make it possible to put a covenant in the loan that says that the HOA will raise the dues to the extent necessary to make the debt payments?
yes, that is in our documents. We don't have any ceiling for raising dues. If we want to do more than 20%, then we do have to have the community vote, but we're allowed to do 20% each year. So we could conceivably continue that 20%.
Okay.
After 2027.
Okay, well, what I was asking is, in addition to your 20% and then needing to go for a vote, would you be willing to, if necessary, if this is in the loan document, to covenant that you will raise the dues
Yes, absolutely.
necessary if 20% is not enough,
Right.
without taking the risk of getting a no vote from your constituents because it's more than 20%? So that would take a charter change. Is that something that you'd
For
be
that
willing to undertake?
articles. Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to exercise chairman's prerogative here.
All right.
And so, look, I've got one final question for you. What's the status of the water right this second? Like if I turned on flush the toilet or turn on a tap in one of the homes, would it work?
Depends on the day.
At this-
Sometimes not. Sometimes they shut it off. They have to shut off everyone's water to make repairs. So
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question for me.
Yeah.
Has there been any talks with the city? Is there any interest in them taking over the system? Is there interest on your part for taking over the system?
yes, so we are working with the administrator of new development at Tucson Water. He's going to be speaking at our meeting on Monday about turning the system over to them and having them do all of the metering and repair. So we would give them easements to be able to make those repairs.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. What I'm going to do is exercise chairman's prerogative here and table this one for not to have a vote. Like, I don't see that there is a pressing need right this second, like it's not like and I get it. There is a absolute urgency to this, but I'm saying that like a week or two or 3 or 4 is not going to like, kind of destroy this one. All I want to do is to make sure that we are that we have all the facts, that we understand all the implications of what's going on. Right? This is not to say that we're not sympathetic to the situation that you're in, but this particular case is one that we should probably be careful of because of the precedents that it may set, as well as some of the other aspects of it. So with that, I'm going to ask staff to do a little bit more investigation around this, bring back sort of some of the policy implications, some of the, how many others of these things are out there, as well as some recommendations around how we might best proceed in this particular case, given the concerns that have already been voiced inside of this room. Thank you very much for your time. And with that, we will move on to the next agenda item.
And just real quickly, Mr. Chair, so I hear the purpose of that tabling and the directives to staff to bring back some policy implications, potentially a policy for this board. I am going to assume that's tabled till the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Moving on into the regular agenda. That was, if you guys can believe it, that was the pre-regular agenda.
You're regular.
Not maybe, it's not irregular, but like, yeah, pre-regular is probably what it is, just to invoke time and temporality. We will now begin consideration of items on our regular agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak on a specific item on this agenda may request to speak prior to the chairman opening discussion on that item. For instructions on how to submit a speaker's card, please refer to the notes on proceedings at the end of the meeting agenda. With that, we will dive in. Agenda item number 11, 2026 legislative agenda. Ben, please lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll invite our Chief of Government Affairs, Judah Waxelbaum, to come up and present to you. But I do want, before we start, I do want to say thank you for all those who are planning on attending the upcoming Verde Valley WIFA Water Projects Tour. Appreciate that. We hope to have some additional opportunities coming up for you. And again, this is an opportunity for you to engage specifically with policymakers about the great stuff that WIFAs do. So Judah is going to provide an overview of our legislative agenda and kind of the in-house legislative agenda solicitation process we're going through. This is a first read, so I'll turn it over to Judah.
Chair recommends, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if this slide looks familiar to most of you, that is because a lot of it is from last year. We got consumed with some other priorities as session went, so we have some items here coming back. First and foremost, we're here to protect the funding we currently have. Our budget ask this year was mainly no further cuts to WIFA in terms of the long-term water augmentation fund and our other pots. We also said we've received a lot of great applications for the Water Conservation Grant Fund. As many of you know, when we did the initial $200 million round, I believe we received about 300 million in applications, and then several folds more when we received the additional 14 to award. So we have in our budget request an additional ask if they could find the money for us for Water Conservation Grant Fund. This is a bipartisan item that we've been able to get some traction with. We were able to get some money for it in the last budget, but was only about $250,000. So the more the merrier we could get with that. That is again in this year's budget request. And then on the policy sides of things, these are the items that we had in here last year in terms of defining imported water when it comes to rules. This would be done in conjunction with the Department of Water Resources. This does not have to be done through statute. As it currently stands, it is our belief that there is not a problem with putting water through an augmentation process towards assured water supply, but they don't want any discrepancies or concerns by putting it in rules. It just alleviates any concerns someone may have in regarding to being able to put imported water towards their assured water supply certificate. Even though we do not have any reason to believe it couldn't, we don't want there to be any form of ambiguity. Words.
Ambiguity.
Yes. So that is something we're going to pursue again with ADWR, try to alleviate some of the concerns about pursuing that. And then we are going to work very hard to highlight phase 2 of the long-term water augmentation fund when it launches this December to the legislature. We have been hearing for years now that we will fund you when you have projects. We heard you loud and clear. We believe we will have teams to be able to talk about what they want to do and what that looks like as real potential importation projects. So bringing them down there, opening it up to questions, proving to the legislature that this is not hypothetical. These are real options to bring water to the state of Arizona. We believe everything we are looking to pursue is in line with our mission statement and our 5-year plan here at WIFA. And then not mentioned here on the slide, but what I want to go over, Ben alluded to it a little bit. We asked the staff here at WIFA to fill out a legislative solicitation of sorts. So we sent them a form essentially asking, is there anything in statute that is making your job harder? Is there any redundancies, anything that is making your job overly burdensome? Our plan is at the next board meeting to present to you what we found and if there's any options to move forward with maybe alleviating some of those hurdles. Those could be rules, those could be statutes. It might just be opening up certain conversations with other agencies or the executive branch to make our lives easier with the work we're trying to do here. And then on that note, Ben and I are continuing to work to really engage the board on giving you more opportunities to interact with us on the government affairs side of things, on the external affairs side of things. So please take us up on tour opportunities when they present themselves. I may ask you to get involved on some of our legislative interactions this session. Could be a letter, could be interacting a legislator for the areas you represent. But our goal here is to really give you all the opportunity to be hands-on with our external affairs department should you want to. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Ken?
What's the general overall look for budget? And why I ask that is, although I don't think under any circumstances we should have a big target on our backs, but some people do. They view us, as we've seen as maybe the, piggy bank if they're looking for a rainy day fund type thing. So I'm just curious the overall budget projections, health, and what it looks like, and going into the legislative session.
So I think the line Ben and I have been using at this point is that we're here to make it rain, not be the rainy day fund. So with the budget we are looking at this coming session, thank you. With the budget we are looking at between the one big beautiful bill implications, the budget situation this year is not looking great. There are a lot of conversations about shoring up certain agencies, possibly through more rounds of supplementals. There are really big concerns about implications for rural hospitals that are going to have to be handled. And we believe once we are able to roll out phase 2 and show them that this money is not sitting by any means, that we will be able to alleviate a lot of those concerns when it comes to our funding. I am being an optimist when it comes to this because my job would be very hard if I wasn't. So we believe we are positioned to not be viewed as a rainy day fund, but I don't believe there's any agency going into this budget requesting new funding.
Yeah. Other questions, comments?
You mentioned the big beautiful bill. So if the legislature, which is typically probably the norm to try to conform to the federal government, that could have big implications, it sounds like, for the budget. So depending on how that conformity works might determine how much money is left or not left or whatever.
Yeah, so
That's fair.
Mr. Davis, the conformity bill will have significant implications for what our budget situation looks for. There's no draft bill yet, but it will have implications, especially since there's discussions about whether or not we're going to make adjustments when it comes to any form of salt or what that could potentially look like here in Arizona.
Okay, additional comments or questions? Thank you very much. I think that it's very clear that we will have a very big decision to make once we start looking at some of the specifics of the projects that move forward. And I don't think that anybody, even on this board, has determined whether we're going to spend a cent on this stuff or not, right? Everything depends upon the quality of the projects and if they're good, and if we as a board believe that they will assure the water future of Arizona as it's intended to, then we will be the first to support it. And if it doesn't, right, then we will be the first to say, let's keep looking. But either way, thank you, Ben, Judah, for your work on this particular matter. I think that's a very good segue into the next agenda item, number 12. Oh, sorry, please.
That's okay. I think the one thing that he touched on that's gonna be important is to make sure we talk to the legislature that it's not just sitting there. I think that was a key point that he made, to make sure that, hey, this isn't just sitting there. This is money that's being in use right now or going to be in use within this period of time, and we have to have it.
It is also, that is a good point to make also, that there are some decisions, no matter how fast that people would want things to go, this is a decision that will have impacts for decades, if not centuries. And sometimes it's better to be a little bit more judicious with the study of this particular type of thing. Thank you for your comments, sir. Any others? Okay, agenda item number 12, development of a financial plan for the long-term augmentation fund. That I could not have asked for a better cue and a tee up for you. Denise?
Thank you. So want to keep using the words we've been talking through so far. This is a blank piece of paper. We have nothing. We have no financial plan. We're starting from scratch. So I'm introducing some topics to the board today, but I'm definitely looking for some feedback. So this is an interaction. I have no numbers for you. I do not have a financial plan. So this is the first stages of developing that. I think it's important to establish goals and what you want the funding to do. So with that, I did put some thoughts of possible goals down for the board's consideration. Number one, a financial plan is just basic, is really the purpose is to provide a roadmap for the board to make sound decisions. It's also perhaps to support an in-state water projects program, loan program. It could support a revolving loan program, especially if we decide to leverage the fund. It could support project development. We've already made some commitments. We are already agreeing to pay our base contracts with some development funds to develop possible future water augmentation projects. But there's also a third area, which it also could be used to provide a guarantee for a future long-term water augmentation projects. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. And if we go to the next slide, just to remind the board, you've seen this before. Some of you are new, so this is new information. But this is a big task, right? We have to bring 100,000 acre feet into the state of Arizona. We're not talking about a small project. And so there's a level of risk here. Now, just like we were talking earlier, put yourselves in this, we're in a reverse situation, right? So when we do loans, we ask our borrowers, our potential borrowers, to make a pledge to ensure that they'll repay their debt. So now we're on the other side of the coin. We may have people who want to finance this project, but any financing is going to have to depend on a pledged revenue source, which is going to be with water off-takers. So until we get those water off-taker commitments in place, who is mining these financial risks that we have on the board here? So I would argue that we need our long-term water augmentation fund to support those risks and those guarantees acting as a bridge until we can get our water off-taker agreements in place or until construction happens on whatever we choose to do. So this is an important piece in this information, to try to keep the private sector engaged, try to keep competition viable, and to keep interest in our projects. So those are just some ideas. And if we go to the next slide, and bear with me, I'll back up. I'm going to back up and go back to the principles, but I was trying to illustrate what a financial plan could look like here, because it's going to get very complicated very fast. And this is just one model. There's various layers here. And also, please stop me to make sure I'm being clear and you understand what I'm talking about. There's no stupid questions here. So available funds, right now in this fund, we have about $397 million. If we choose to leverage this money, we can use those bond proceeds for the three things I just talked about: to support an in-state loan program, to support risk mitigation, and to also pay for our base contracts and do project development. If we do that, it gets very complicated very fast, but we could do a self-sustaining in-state loan program because those loans would repay themselves. We would use that, the principal and interest from those loans, to pay our principal and interest on the debt for that piece. So it's a self-sustaining program. We've talked about having a limit of $96 million, which is the 25% of the fund. There are alternatives here depending on how we structure this financially. We could do more if we leverage the program and if we attract high credit borrowers. So the risk mitigation we talked about, this is setting up reserves. This is setting up a bridge. This is setting up a guarantee that this project is important and that we're willing to take on some of those risks until the off-taker agreements come into place. Now, once we get there and once we're very comfortable that we're going to build this thing and then we're going to be able to deliver water, that's when investors are going to be interested in this project. That's when we're going to see them come to the table. We're not going to see much of that beforehand. That's just probably a reality. So once we see and once we get them to the table, we can probably flip this funding into a long-term financing based on those off-taker commitments. So there's a short-term problem here, but a long-term fix. And I'm very hopeful in that fix. And then the last thing is we still want to sponsor the development of these projects through our base contract and our task orders. So that's putting our money to work. We could do it very quickly. We could do this very quickly. The interest earnings on this could be used to pay for WIFA admin. It's significant on this pot of money if it's there earning interest. It also can.
It's not currently earning interest.
It's earning interest now.
Yeah.
It's currently,
I was
but
gonna say.
if we don't have it, it was earning a lot more interest 2 years ago before.
Fair enough.
before
We're all aware of
before
the gyrations of the
correct.
market, but.
And then also, there is a component here that could be revolving again once the long-term project comes into play. So there's a lot of factors here, but I think the overall goal is really to have affordable water, right? So this could cost us a little bit of money to leverage it, but it also helps us in the long term ensure that there's a guarantee. It gives the project a chance, and I think it could lead to affordable water at the end. So that's high level what I'm thinking about as far as developing a financial plan for the board to consider. And if you go back to the slide with all the goals, I'm happy to entertain thoughts, discussions, and questions.
So I'll once again exercise prerogative here and just kind of say a couple of things up top before inviting everybody to join in on the discussion. Huge questions, right? These are very, very, very momentous questions. And it's not just short, medium, long term. There's several short, medium, long terms. There's short, medium, long term for the specific long-term water augmentation bonding. And then there's the short, medium, long term for the life of the fund itself. Or, like the water needs of the state. It's a very, very complex problem. So the first question that I'm going to have just for you is, how much time do we have on this? For example, and I'm just gonna use a metaphor. I mean, do we need an answer in a week because like the cliff is right there? Or like we have flagged this far enough in advance where we've got, not all the time in the world, but we can study this a bit. The first effort to which is, the discussion that we're gonna have here today.
I think I'll let our director answer that question.
Chelsea.
We're not hanging from a cliff, but I think time is of the essence, right? And there's a few reasons for that. The first is, of course, fiscal realities and political realities. The second reason for that, though, is I think Denise's presentation about, and her goals of ultimately affordable water, but also providing a guarantee for these importation projects. Signaling to our teams, because they're evaluating us too, right? This is a two-way street. This is a voluntary transaction. Signaling our seriousness and that we are the adults in the room here and we are looking for ways to put our money where our mouth is, quite literally, and say we are here to secure these projects only benefits us. And the sooner that we do that, and the sooner that we bring some sort of guarantee of how we can absorb some of that risk from the outset, because I think that's what we were created to do, the better off we are in our future interactions with those teams.
Thank you.
I realize it's not actually a time frame, but.
Oh, I noticed. That being said, let's open it up to the board just for general discussion around this. I think we've teed it up nicely. The short version is, we don't have a specific financial plan. There's a lot of different options. They all have ramifications, and we don't have all the time in the world, but we have a little bit, is kind of the interpretation that I've got here. And so I think that I would love to hear from the rest of the board as to what is the first kind of blush reactions. Do I have any volunteers to go first?
I'll go first.
Mr. Beckham.
Yeah, my first reaction is I totally understand what you're doing. Can you go back to the chart? Whoever's the chart master.
This one or the flow chart?
Flow chart.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, what you've got here makes sense. I will just make one comment that the concept of using our money as a bridge to until off-takers come and sign up. The question is always, how far along do you take a project? And it's, I'll make the metaphor, it's the business I've been in forever, and a lot of people are. Do you build a building on spec and then get leases because you prove that you're going? Or do you get some people to sign up first and then you lever off their credit in order to drop your financing cost on the structure actually build? So there's no great answer to that yet. I'm generally risk averse in that and turn everything I can possibly before I start a shovel in the ground and break ground on getting leases signed. But you do everything you can up till that point, so you're squeezing out the risk. And that's where I'll be headed in my mind, honestly, as we go forward.
Thank you for that. Other additional, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Denise and staff on this. I think the primary question before us is leverage or not leverage. And with respect to leverage, it's just a question of how much do you lever? I think looking at this flow chart, it would be possible if this is something that we would want to do, to take the top portion, the in-state loan program, and kind of carve that off by itself, and with its 90 some odd $1 million piece of the available funds, and turn that into a self-sustaining revolving fund by itself, and or having its, call it, own leverage, that we just lever that piece of it to right fit that program for itself, rather than wrap it all in and make an overall leverage decision of how much leverage makes sense for us for everything altogether, rather than the in-state program and the importation program. So it may be a little more work, but and for me, the biggest question mark is in the biggest oval here, which is the guarantees and the risk assignment and all of that type of stuff. And also some of what we heard from David and Pete, which is how long does that bridge, those bridges and those commitments last, and the temporary risk mitigation that's provided by WIFA before the off-takers come, which is one reason why I would like to potentially consider carving off the in-state program by itself and making a separate decision with respect to leverage for that piece of it. Although there's more flexibility to have it combined potentially, but
Yeah,
there's
as you cross.
but the other side of the coin then is you have a parasite potentially of one on the other. And you're not as free to do what you otherwise might be willing to do. If, for instance, you go out and get one big giant
You get the good with the bad,
bond
yes.
proceeds, yeah. So where I was going with all of that is seems to me that there's two or three scenarios. There's no leverage or there's some leverage. The some leverage question is how much? And for how long? And if I was doing it, I think I would separate the two first, the in-state and the water importation project first, and see, for instance, what makes sense for the in-state and what makes sense for the importation, as if it was the only thing and there wasn't the other one. And then that would be able to better inform us about, does it make sense to combine those in some way and have one bond issue or separate bond issues going forward. So I would actually like to see the pieces rather than no leverage or leverage of $400 million without kind of the interim steps of how was that built up and why, and what were the assumptions, particularly on the importation projects and that middle oval about how long and how much with respect to risk mitigation and guarantees and bridges and things like that. That way at least we would have the option on paper, if somehow we get bogged down on one or the other, to go do the other piece without waiting for the whole thing, which is our consistent problem that we and every deliberative body has, is how much information do you need before you decide to go do something. So was that specific enough to?
Yes, one thing when you do a bond issue is you can do a bond issue and have different components of that bond issue. Like you can do taxable and non-taxable. You can do an in-state program and a risk program. So there's a lot of flexibility here on how we financing it. But as far as developing a financial plan, I can definitely break out the components that you just asked.
Yeah. Chair recognizes Tim Tomir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to basically piggyback on what Board Member Cook just laid out of bifurcating the two and treating them independently, reserving the ability to treat them together at some point if we need it. I just see very different risk profile, very different timeframes, very different scales between the two programs that I think they merit their own independent evaluation and consideration before we make any fundamental decisions there. So just here to what Mr. Cook said.
Thank you. I think that is a important structural question, right? And you've heard two voices that are saying that, let's keep them separate or whatever. I'm just, for the sake of argument, I'm going to voice the other one just to make sure it remains on the docket, right? Because sometimes you make decisions inadvertently through guidance and I don't want to do that. I think that there is a real debate and a real thought to be had, because there are pros and cons, as with anything else, as to the structures of this stuff. And I think it's worth deliberating in a rapid but yet considered way around what are the pros and cons around this. I really urge the rest of the board to weigh in here on these types of things. It's a little bit dense material in terms of but if water is the lifeblood of the state, then, capital is the lifeblood of an organization, of a lending organization like ours. And so this really does kind of, it's right up there with some of the most important discussions that we've had. So, yeah, but
I'll just say, I think for financial reasons and help, understanding the bigger picture, it is helpful to break it out, between the in-state program and potentially but I would just point out that physically, there's a possibility, potentially, I don't know, that actual infrastructure invested in both pots could be used together. And so in reality, down the road, it might end up being sort of combined, but I think to the points being made, for right now, to break it out, just kind of understand, because the nature are different. But as has been said, down the road, knowing that we could combine it because sort of the financials could overlap in some real physical way, potentially, maybe, I don't know, depending on what the projects we see.
additional comments? Anyone online? Patrice,
You know,
Dr. Michaels? Yep, go ahead, Patrice. Chair recognizes Patrice Horstman.
yeah, you're exactly right. I think this is one of the key questions that we need to really look at and answer. So I have to tell you, I'm a little taken aback that we're kind of doing it here at the very end of a meeting. That's number one, because I do think that it really is going to take a lot of thought and discussion. I can just say from what I've heard, I understand the possible financial plan goals and the importance of that, to bring water into the state, which is ultimately what we're supposed to be doing. And so I also kind of see the bifurcation in the state loan and the other programs, and I think that makes sense. But to be honest with you, I think this needs a lot more discussion. And I understand time's of the essence, but I still think it's one of the key questions that we have as a board. And I think we need to make thoughtful and knowing decisions as we move forward. That'd be my comments.
Thank you, Patrice. And I just want to mention that nobody is saying that we should go fast on any of this stuff. I think that the particular position of this agenda topic in this, it was more or less due to the specifics of how this particular meeting went, but it should not be interpreted in any way to be reflective of the importance that I think staff has assigned to this. But thank you, Patrice, for that. I agree with you for what it's worth, that we're probably not going to get to a decision here today.
And we were in fact not noticed on the agenda for a decision today.
Right.
So this was meant to be a very high-level introduction 101 to, we need a financial plan. Here's what we came up with from a blank sheet of paper. Get your initial reactions to help us refine that. And then of course, bring for additional discussion, either among a smaller group or among the board, before we actually make any sort of commitments or decisions.
That's correct. It's a blank sheet of paper.
And once again,
I
there
just
is
threw a bunch of ideas at you.
There is a
very
metaphor,
quickly.
and like Denise is very good at her job, and what she has done is basically introduce the topic, right?
Correct.
And I will emphasize again, yes, this is important. Yes, we should do a good job of it. And no, we were not going to make a decision on this today anyway. Instead, what was supposed to happen was exactly what is happening, which is how do we start taming the question of a blank piece of paper? And that's
Correct.
through discussion. Okay, additional comments?
And Pete, yes, and I'm glad to hear that, because I heard a question that was asked is, when do we need to move forward on this? And the answer was, well, pretty soon. And we aren't off the cliff yet. So, and I don't want us to get off the cliff. And I agree 100% we need to get a financial plan together. So this is good. I appreciate the discussion. And I appreciate that we're going to have further opportunities to look at this and to discuss it in the future. So thank you.
Good. Okay, let's continue this discussion. Maybe one more stanza. Denise, based upon what you've heard so far, does that spur any additional questions for you? I encourage you to have basically to continue to have conversations, but here's what I would like. I was thinking about referring this down to the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee's board, just to kind of talk about this, but actually I think I'm going to change my mind on that. This one is actually important enough where it should, basically take the time of the full board in full view with transparency around that. So I'm gonna put this to bed in a second, right, with the kind of pin in there that this is, you know, all caps important. Do you have any additional questions today, right, that have come up in your mind based upon things that just might move things along with a little bit more expeditiously?
No, I think I got enough feedback. We can run various scenarios and figure out the appropriate setting to discuss the models that we come up with for the different options.
Very much looking forward to that.
And
Any
I think
additional
that
comments?
setting could be in sort of a workshop format, similar to what we discussed in the last meeting. We did not create a finance subcommittee, but did have a desire for sort of more concerted financial briefings. I think that's a great opportunity for us to try out that structure.
Good. I'm smirking because that's exactly what I was. Okay, good. Anybody else? Final discussions on this topic? All right. Great job, everyone. Let's move on. Agenda item 13A, consideration of long-term augmentation fund in-state financial assistance program draft policy 2.20, long-term water augmentation fund financial assistance. Director McGuire, please lead the discussion.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kim. So we just came off of a long-term water augmentation fund committee meeting where this was discussed in some detail. I'm going to be a bit repetitive for the benefit of the public, our members who are not on that committee and our non-voting members, just to make sure we're all at the same spot as we begin to discuss both the policy and the resolution that's in front of you today. So Ben, if you can go to the next slide. Many of you will remember that the long-term water augmentation fund is not just for the purpose of importation projects, but it has, as we just discussed, some in-state components, some other permissible uses. And hinging on the discussion that we just had was the idea that WIFA would open up an in-state program consistent with our statutory authority. And the committee has had now 2 different meetings of discussion about this and finds that to be a valuable use of our time. And I think our potential borrowers would agree with that. We've done some work out in the field to say, is there a demand for an in-state program? And the answer has been a pretty resounding yes. So what we're bringing to you today is a broad contour of what that program would look like, the order of operations for a program like that, and then also a resolution that would open a discrete funding cycle for applications in an in-state program. So Ben, I'm gonna have you actually go 2 slides ahead. What is financial assistance? Because we're dealing with statute, we have to all make sure that we are dealing with and understand the terminology that we're actually using. So when we talk about financial assistance, that is to one of 2 things. It's either loans or it's credit enhancements. Unlike some of our other programs where we have a grant or forgivable principal component, that's not available under the long-term augmentation fund by statute. We have an obligation under that statute to, quote, take necessary actions to obtain full repayment for financial assistance. Doesn't mean we can't make it affordable, but the incentive structures are different. So want to make sure we're clear on that. Second, and next slide, who can actually apply for this financial assistance? This is a familiar definition. Under our statutes, there are 2 broad contours of eligible entities. Those are water providers and public entities. Water providers both means what you think it means, municipal water systems, water augmentation authorities, and it means some things you probably don't think of, like natural resource conservation districts, and also tribal entities are considered under the umbrella of the water provider definition. Public entities are anything created and organized under Arizona law. That's cities, towns, counties, districts, commissions. If a statute authorizes you to exist, you are a public entity and therefore eligible. Okay, so now we know the kind of tool we're talking about. We know who can apply to utilize that tool. What is a water supply development project? This again is a relatively broad definition, but it includes projects that help a borrower either acquire water or rights to water, that help a borrower plan, design, build, or develop water facilities for many different purposes, but that can include conveyance, storage, reclamation and reuse, replenishing groundwater, stormwater recharge, and it also includes conservation projects. What I told the committee, again, is that these are eligibility criteria. These are not scoring, right? So just because a project is eligible as a water supply development project doesn't necessarily mean that it's something the committee or the board would want to fund, but this is the broad scope, the spectrum of potential eligible projects. So with that, our goal and the goal that the committee tasked staff with was to bring the structure of what an in-state program would look like. So we'll move first to the discussion of the policy, which, as I mentioned, is truly the order of operations. And the policy in front of you, which has been recommended for approval by the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee, explains what this program would look like mechanically. The way that it is structured now is that this board would open and authorize an actual funding cycle, and that is one of the board's statutory duties. And that funding cycle will be authorized through a resolution, similar to the one that you have in front of you today. That resolution can be as detailed as the board wants it to be. So if the board says, we want projects that include blue unicorns, then that will be in the resolution, right? We create the scope of that, we create the structure, you create the structure as the board.
For the record, I don't believe the board will request blue unicorns.
I'm really glad for that. Not a great use of our time. Once the board authorizes that resolution, staff will take it. We will develop an application that is consistent with that resolution. And then we will publish that application, we will market that application and ensure that everyone who needs to know that it exists knows that the opportunity is open. Once we receive the applications, this is going to look really similar to what we saw on the water conservation side of things. So staff is not going to have the objective scoring that you see like on our water supply development. Instead, staff is going to evaluate these applications in a more narrative format. We will explain the benefits of the project, the purpose of the project, what the project is. We'll do a deep dive into the financial capacity of the potential borrower, because again, not a grant program, this is a loan program. All of that narrative will be provided to the committee, who will then rank and score those applications. So very similar to what the Water Conservation Grant Fund did in making their funding recommendations, the Long-Term Augmentation Committee will be the one doing the heavy lifting, ranking the applications in order of priority. That ranking will be provided to this board at a later meeting. This board will look at that ranking and either decide to accept it, to change it, and then decide which of those applications it would like to fund. Once that's determined, staff will work on all of the mandatory loan agreements and those documents to actually be determined by the authority according to our statutory requirements. That is a lot. Again, the Long-Term Augmentation Committee has had some time to digest this already, but Mr. Chair, I will leave it to your discretion to ask for additional discussion, additional input, and then eventually move to a motion on the policy.
Very good. That was a lot, really fast. And there is, and I am a member of that committee, as are several other folks that are here. But so this is really a question directed at the folks who aren't. Right? Did you understand what we just talked about there? Right? And because it's kind of important as well. And let's just have that discussion and before we are move forward with or without a resolution.
Yep.
Discussion. Oh, come on. Mr. Tomier, Ms. Horstman, Dr. Michaels.
You know, I also sit on that committee and we did have a very thorough discussion and Chelsea, want to thank you for that. You know, taking a look at our policies and breaking that down and then taking a look at the resolution. And quite frankly, I think it is a great way to proceed. I think it gives us the flexibility that we need. Yet, as we talked about, I think the resolution does provide some specifics so that we have some parameters on what we're offering and letting the public know, you know, what we're offering and what this is about. So I think it's excellent. I don't know if there are questions for those that don't sit on the committee that we could answer, but I'm very much in favor of going forward with this.
Good. Just so that folks know, like that discussion, I believe, is also will be available online for people to, yes. So if you are curious, you can kind of take it. But to net it out, effectively what's happening is there's a chunk of that money that's available for in-state programs and things like that. And all we're saying is that, like, let's peek our nose out there and see what's out there. We have not obligated ourselves to spend a dime. We have not obligated ourselves to do anything other than take a look and see what might be interesting. This lays that out there, and I think it's always a good idea to keep your nose, you know, out there and just figure out what is the actual need so that you can see it coming as well as respond in time to that. So with that, any additional comments or questions? Mr. Cook? No?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. Then may we have a motion on agenda item 13A for draft policy 2.20?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Cook, go ahead.
Well, thank you.
Actually, sorry, before we do we have public comment on this, Ben? I don't want to have the board vote unless and until they've dealt
Please
with
pardon
that.
me. I should have
It's
asked
not
for
in your
that.
script either, so.
I'll extend an offer to Mr. Thomas Gradick if he would like to address the board. I think you're signed up under the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund Committee, but you weren't here then, so with the chair's okay, we can extend.
Mr. Gradick has my full permission to talk.
And Mr.
I know, right?
Let me.
I'm impressed with myself.
Mr. Gradek, your mic is enabled.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Gradick.
Thank you for accepting my request. And I think what I just looked at in the previous slide, that, you know, your water augmentation fund will include water that is available within the state. And and you've done over $200 million of funding in conservation projects. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a great move. We are focused on conserving water, and especially in agriculture, the biggest user of fresh water. And our solution is a very long-term solution. It's more or less a
I'm sorry, Mr. Gradick, who do you represent?
RHST Industries.
I see. So you are a private company.
We are.
Got it.
And we've had discussions with in Tucson, in Sahuarita, with Freeport McMoran, also with CAP. And you have a huge pecan farm. And what we intended to do is to look at reducing their water footprint, and that would generate over 10,000 acre-feet per year in terms of water savings. It's a solution which is not expensive in terms of comparison to importing water. You're looking at $400 per acre-foot per year, and you can have it for over 100 years. So we'd like to know if how do we go about putting a proposal in front of the board?
Thank you, Mr. Gradick, for your comments here. We appreciate all members of the public coming forth and sharing their thoughts with the board. I will direct you to work with staff to have your proposals reviewed, and if there is merit there, then I'm sure that it will come before the board's attention in due course. Thank you very much for your time today, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, may we have a motion on agenda item 13A for draft policy 2.20? I believe Mr. Cook was in the process of making a motion.
Just the very, very, very beginning process.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, I recommend that the board adopt policy Roman numeral 2.20, long-term water augmentation fund financial assistance, as recommended by the committee.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, no blue unicorns notwithstanding, I second.
Expressing my disappointment in the absence of blue unicorns, which are always critical. Any additional board member discussion? With no further discussion, we will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Agenda item 13B, consideration of long-term augmentation fund in-state financial assistance program resolution 2026-028, long-term water augmentation fund in-state funding cycle. Director McGuire.
Thank you.
After that mouthful, please lead the discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we just passed the policy that outlines the contours. This is the resolution that would open the first funding cycle. So this is our specificity. This is what kinds of projects do you want to fund as we go through with this. The resolution in front of the board today tries to outline and encapsulate the discussion that the committee had. So I do want to recap that just quickly for the public and again, our non-voting members and our non-committee members. The committee recommends, and the committee's thought is that this is a program that should be for projects that prioritize finding more water. That's new water supplies that can actually be put to use. And through that, we do want to take a posture of flexibility, of looking for innovation, using a wide lens to determine what kinds of projects those look like, finding bigger projects than we've been able to fund under our other programs, a lot of which have statutory caps. And so this doesn't have that cap in terms of the size of the loan that we can provide. This is also a project or a funding cycle that the committee desired to not be overflow, so to speak, for projects that didn't make it through in other programs. This is not a more of the same, but this is something different. To the chairman's point earlier, let's put our nose out there and let's see what kind of demand there is, what kind of need we have for these kinds of projects, and let's see what's there and what we can attract. So to that point, there are a number, and if you can go to the next slide, Ben, I believe it's 18 different statutory criteria outlined in our authorizing statutes that say these are the criteria that this board shall consider when it determines applications for financial assistance. However, the board has the authority to consider some of those as heavier or more weighted than others, and it also has a very helpful other factors as the board deems appropriate. So what we tried to do in this resolution was incorporate the discussion to emphasize really 4 of those factors. And if you can go to the next slide, those factors are reliability, demand versus supply, and project benefits. So that kind of goes to that immediate use of water, putting more water on the ground for use for the benefit of Arizonans and the economy and the environment. And then also the ability to repay. And that really goes to the conversation we just had about what role leveraging will play in this program, both for the in-state side as well as providing that guarantee for our out-of-state projects. So that is the resolution that is before you. The committee did recommend several minor changes to that resolution, which I believe we probably have up as a red line that we can share. And we'll do that, and then would be happy to entertain either additional changes to that or more discussion on the resolution itself.
Very good. Discussion, please. None.
I'm discussed out.
You're discussed out? Okay.
Just as long as you're not disgusted. We're okay.
Those are 2 very different things.
So Ben, do you have the red line of, awesome. Thank you. And I was remiss in noting, similar to the policy, the Long-Term Augmentation Committee did vote to recommend approval of this policy to the full board.
Yeah. Okay. I do not see anybody's hand up for additional comments. I'll just kind of say one thing on this, which is that I think everything, again, I was part of that discussion earlier. I do think that everything that has been said in this resolution is very flexible. It's that blank sheet of paper kind of reference again. It's to get out there rapidly and to understand what is the need for this. One thing that I do like is that there was a reference to the ability to repay. And I like that for a couple of different reasons. But just to put it in blunt terms, there's a difference between free money and money that you have to pay back. And oftentimes, when the rubber meets the road, the ability to repay and sign up for things is a much better indicator of, somebody's true thoughts around why and how this is going to be benefit. And if they can repay that back, then I think that is a very nice signal indeed. And then there's also the notion that if it is repaid, then we can, quote, recycle this money, right? And then use this money for generations as opposed to a big bang on these types of things. So I just wanted to call out in particular that particular aspect of it and the several reasons why I think it's wise to do so. With that blathering, may we have a motion?
And I will just
Yep.
sorry, before we do that, I will just walk through the changes recommended by the committee.
Please, yep.
So you do see on the screen here in section 2.2 of the resolution, changing the terminology from funds committed to funds available. Again, that gets to the discussion that we had where this is not us committing ourselves to do anything, but it is opening up a realm of possibility. So wanted to make that clear. Then there's also a change to the last section of the policy, which I forget the numbering of at the moment.
Something.
But added a statutory reference to explain that this is a funding cycle limited to that particular section of statute which authorizes us to provide financial assistance for in-state projects. So just wanted to make that clear. If the motion is as recommended for amendment by the committee, we all know what those recommendations are.
Thank you for making sure that we dotted our i's and crossed our t's. That's actually very important. Do we have a motion on agenda item 13B for resolution 2026-028 at this time?
This is Tim. I'll move to approve.
We have a move. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Drew John.
Drew John, second. Excellent. Any board member discussion? Do I need to ask for public? No? Okay, good.
Yeah.
No public, all right. With no further discussion, we will call for a vote at this time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Agenda item 14, call to the public. This is the time for any additional public comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Have we received any requests for public comments at this time?
Mr. Ben Strychek, representing the Phoenix Christian Preparatory School.
Ah, excellent. Hello again, sir.
Hey, guys. Hello, friends. Thank you, Director McGuire, for your kind words earlier. Thank you guys all for all the work you're doing. I heard you say you're discussed out, and so I don't want to waste too much time.
Sir,
today. I just-
if I may,
Yes, sir.
please
Thank
go
you.
ahead. We are absolutely pleased to see you.
So maybe we'll see you all. I was sad to
And
see
don't
after
forget
our
to turn
last.
your mic too, so that way our online friends can hear you as well.
Is this on?
There we go. It's on now. All right. I just wanted to thank you guys again for all the work you do. I just wanted to understand the decision in its finality. I'm not trying to badger you guys anymore, but we got an email very quickly after the last meeting. I'm really grateful for that, saying that our application originally was never approved nor denied. And just being a basketball coach and athletic director, clearly this is not my area of expertise. But I understand that we are not a public entity at being a private school, and I wasn't sure if that was the reason why we were neither accepted or denied. And I just didn't know if there was any procedural methods for reconsideration in terms of like a motion to reconsider or anything like that before these, I don't even know what ended up happening with those deobligated funds. That I said that word so many times that I actually Googled it. And I don't even think it's in the dictionary as a real word, but I know that we talked a lot about deobligated funds.
Right there next to Blue Unicorn, sir.
Okay, I missed that. All right. Well, in any event, my dad raised me. The answer is no, unless you ask. We are so close. We've actually pivoted our gala, which we have an annual big fundraiser, and we're going to do it on our football field for athletics. We always do it for teacher salaries and other things. So I'll be not a popular man with the teachers on campus if this gets done, but we are so close to getting this done. And my question to you guys was just if there was any way, shape, or form that I could petition for those deobligated funds for my community. So if there is, you guys can email me and let me know. But so grateful for all the work you guys do, and I'm praying that you guys get that 25 million for next year, because I 100% will be back petitioning for that if not. So thank you guys all and for having me again. God bless.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. Make sure we.
Yeah, and we will follow up with you post this meeting. And if we need more in writing, we can do that too. But yeah, stick around so we can talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Ben, any others?
No other requests to speak.
Agenda item 15, agenda development. This is the opportunity for members to identify any topics they would like to be placed on an agenda at a future meeting. Director McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So obviously, we have the study session, additional deep dive into the 5-year financial plan, which we will put on your calendars. I don't have anything else specific that I heard at this meeting to put on a future agenda. But again, I will reiterate my apologies in advance for the need to be flexible going into the rest of the year, given the long-term augmentation solicitation process. And I also do want to flag for you, and also, sorry, the HOA item on the agenda 8. So we will bring that application back, but also with some additional staff recommendations on policy. So that's another agenda item. I do just want to flag right away, our December regularly scheduled meeting is directly in the middle of the Colorado River Water Users Association Conference, CRUA, in Las Vegas. So that probably will change unless we want to do a live from Las Vegas situation, which I don't know if many of us are excited about that. So just keep that in mind as well. We're going to be calling some audibles as we go forward, but thanks very much for your time.
Noted. Agenda item 16, next meeting, Wednesday, November 19th at 9 a.m. Director McGuire, any comments on this?
No, sir.
Excellent. At that point in time, I'm sure you will all be relieved to have our normal chairman back and so that you won't be subjected to my random leanings this way and that. But I will say thank you to the board today for an excellent discussion. I thought that we got a lot done today, and the quality of the discussion was really, really, really pleasing to me, and I think we did some good work today. So with that, agenda item 17, adjournments. I will adjourn this meeting as of 1:12 p.m. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.